Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we are going to make a fun card using some stamps from Rubber Stamp Tapestry. They're our sponsor today. I'm using the Budding Spring set, which I designed, as well as the grass from Muscari and Hyacinth Border, and the flowers and leaves from Petite Poppies. You can find these online at pegstamps.com. For supplies, I have got an A2 size card base. It's just half a sheet of cardstock folded in half, and then I've got a matting layer that is 5 1/4 by 4, and a stamping layer that is 5 inches by 3 3/4. Now I decided to make an envelope for this card, so I did so out of some pattern paper, and then I saved the scraps to do my matting layer and also a gift card holder in the center. And we'll get to that in a second, but basically I took a 4 inch by 8 1/2 inch piece of cardstock, which was a scrap pattern paper rather, and I scored it at 5 1/4 inches, and that's going to make our pocket. Again, we will see that in a bit, but we're going to go right to the stamping right now and just set those aside. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to ink up this tree with some caramel ink. Now you probably notice I have my palette here, and you can use a stamp block for your palette. It doesn't have to be fancy, and we are going to do a little stamping and also some freehand painting and dusting. So we're going to have some fun today using our basic supplies to get some really cool looks. I'm going to start by stamping this about probably an inch from the bottom of my paper. And you just want to give it a little time for the ink to transfer to your panel here. And then while that's still wet, I am going to, and I'll actually just press this on my palette so I have a little bit of ink. I'm going to wet my brush, pick up a little bit of that ink, and move it around a bit. Okay, so you can do a little bit of watercoloring without having actual watercolors. A lot of times you'll be out crafting with friends like I was the other day, and you'll just use what you have. And my friend Tracy inspired this card, so I am so happy to share it with you. So thank you so much, Tracy. You are so inspiring. Okay. It's always nice to craft with friends because you get to inspire each other. So the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to create kind of a bit of ground for my tree to sit at, and I'm going to use the same brown ink, and I'm going to just kind of sketch in a little bit of, kind of like dirt, you know? Nothing too dark. Maybe we'll need a little bit more ink there, but we just want to be able to put a little bit of foreground here. Nothing fancy. Any stamper can do this. Okay, now we're going to grab our trusty ink blending brushes, and we're going to do a little bit of inking to fill in the space a little bit. I'm going to use this pale blue ink and my blending brush and just kind of give it a little bit of ink in the sky. You don't have to go really crazy with this. All you got to do is put a little bit of color in there. If you're worried about it kind of smearing into your tree, you can give the tree a little time to dry, but on cardstock it absorbs real quick and you really don't have to fuss about it too much. You just want a blush of color here. See, it's very, very subtle. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to grab my, I think I'll do bamboo shoots, bamboo leaves. It's one of my favorite colors because it's such a pleasant green that seems to go with everything. It's not, you know, acid green. It's not too bright. It's got a nice earthiness to it. It's kind of like sap green if you were trying to match it to like a paint color. And there, I'm just giving it a little bit of toning on the bottom. So this is all just kind of rouging. Now I'm going to press this on my palette because I know I'm going to want some greens to paint with. So I'm pressing that one, going to cap it up. And it's also really easy to see what your colors really are when you have them on a white plate like this. So if you're using your stamp block as a palette, just make sure you have a piece of white paper underneath it and it will really help you see. I'm going to zoom in a little bit for this next step. We're going to play with a couple of brushes today. These are rake brushes. This is a filbert rake and this is a regular flat rake. And if you can, I don't know if you can really see, maybe if I flip this over, you can see how the bristles at the end are kind of frayed. Well, they're just kind of tapered, like offset, so you just have some long bristles there at the end, and that's really good for doing grasses. So what I'm going to do is wet my brush, and I am going to dip it into, and you can see when I wet it, see how those bristles split apart like that? So it's going to make some really nice grasses for me. So I'm just going to go ahead down near this tree, and I'm going to flick up some grasses. I zoomed in because it might be tough to see if we were zoomed out a little bit more. And I'm just going to throw in some grasses here and there. Now the flat one works the same way. This is a flat rake, and these can be picked up for a couple dollars at your hobby shop. Any big box craft store would have these. I'm throwing in some brighter green grasses here. And basically just kind of filling it in so it looks like we have a nice bit of lawn here. Going with some of this darker color. Just grab whatever greens you have of dye-based ink and it's going to be fine. If your ink doesn't want to come off your brush, wet your brush, okay? It probably just means that it's too dry. And you can make as much or as little as you want. The nice thing about this is you can layer your stamping over this. Because it's such a subtle look, it's not going to compete with whatever you decide to stamp on top. And I'm just working on regular inexpensive cardstock. So the next fun thing that we're going to do with our inks is we're going to do a little bit of painting with them. We're going to do a different technique here. So I'm just getting a little bit more of my ink. So I've got Pear Tart. I have some Cottage Ivy, and I'm going to grab that Bamboo Leaves again. I think I stuck the Pear Tart in the Bamboo Leaves area, but that's fine. And we're going to use another fun brush, and this one is called a Deerfoot Stippler. And see how it kind of looks like an oval? It looks kind of like it's a round brush, but it's cut at an angle, so you get kind of like an oval shape. So I'm just going to wet that a little bit. I don't want it sopping wet. And I'm going to pick up some of this dark color. I really want you to be able to see what shape. See, it makes like a little leaf shape. And I'm going to stipple on some of these darker leaves rather. And it just makes real light work of tapping in foliage. Because sometimes when you're filling with a peg stamp, you can get a real solid look, and then it starts to, you go overboard, and then you have to keep layering, and then before you know it, you have a completely solid tree. This will prevent that because you're just not gonna, it's gonna be a more airy shape that you get in there. And I'm just building up with my second color. And working darkest to lightest, I like, but if you're a little timid, you can go light to dark. It's completely up to you. I'm going to go in with this really pale one, nice springy green leaves. And I can even do the side of my brush with the springy leaves if I want those to look more like new leaves. And I can go back if I feel like I need a few darker ones. Okay, and see how easy that is. So you filled up this tree with lots of beautiful leaves, and it was super duper easy. So I wanted to have some really nice flowers in the foreground. So what I thought would be nice would be poppies. They're some of my favorite flowers, and they come in such cheerful colors. I thought orange and red would be really nice, but you could do pinks and purples. You could do whatever you like. I think there's even blue poppies. But around here, we pretty much have red, orange, or pink. So I am going to, I'm not sure exactly why I pushed that there. I'm actually going to stamp with those colors. So I'm in a painting mood today. What can I say? I'm going to just set these out here and grab my, my poppy stamp. And I am going to throw in a few red ones. Now with the poppy stamp, it doesn't really matter if you have your registration mark any particular way because it's a fairly symmetrical flower. It doesn't look funny if you have it, if you have it turned one way or you don't turn it much while you're going. I do tend to rotate it a little bit as I go because I don't like to get, I don't like to look too samey. I like it to be a little more random. And now I'm going to go in with this grass stamp, and I am going to put some around the edges here. I like to turn this a little bit. You want the registration down, but I will rock it back and forth a little bit so the grasses seem to be blowing in the wind. And I'm going to do this with a little bit of that darker Olive Grove ink. And just build a little texture up this way. And then I think I'll throw in some of the little leaves from the poppy set here. And I'm going to use the bamboo shoots because out of all the greens, it is my favorite. And also, the nice thing about this color is that I've used that to dust the bottom, so if I got a little heavy-handed and I stamped something weird, it's not really going to show up that much because of the other colors that I have going on there. And if you want to have a little accent, maybe I'll use a little pear tart because it's just a bright, cheerful, very yellowy green. I could do little bits with this, and it's really not going to show up, but it will brighten up an area. So I'm just kind of doing that as a little accent, but it doesn't really show up that much, but it does, you know, brighten it up a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to take the Olive Grove and I'm going to ink the edges so I have a little bit of a border. And that just gives us a nice little defining edge. Now I have a couple things to finish off my card. One thing is I want to put a little tire swing from the branch, and that was the inspiration from my friend Tracy. I thought it was look so cute when she did it. And I just used a very pale brown marker watercolor marker to draw down the line, and then I'm just freehanding in a little black circle for my tire swing. There we go. I think that's really sweet. And then these are some of the brads that I got at the stamp show. This one had like weird feet hanging down behind it, so I trimmed those off, and I'm going to put this bird and this bird on my card, and I'm going to do it now so that I can hide the prongs in like behind the layer. So I'll put this guy in right here. And it's probably a good idea to actually use a needle tool to poke that in, but this is fairly thin cardstock because it's just the inexpensive stuff from Sam's Club. And I'll put this guy up here. And now we can put our card together, which will be so simple. I am going to start off by, let's see what side. Oh, I think I like that pattern side up. Let's just grab our card base there. Put some adhesive on our matting layer. Now this is a nice flat card, so it won't cost a lot to mail, which is nice. Had a tape gun malfunction, but it's all back to normal now. Oh, there we go. We're going to center that right up there. So a tip for using pattern paper, if you have a hard time using patterns but you love patterns, try getting a tone-on-tone pattern paper because they're a lot easier to work with because you're only trying to match one color, and it also looks kind of elegant. So if you feel like you just have this like a crazy hot mess happening when you're using your pattern paper, go with a tone-on-tone. And you can see how that's going to coordinate with my envelope because I made the card out of the coordinating paper. So for the inside pocket, I wanted to make sure I had an area that I could write clearly because sometimes craft can be hard to write on. And then I thought, why don't, since I had plenty of that, I had a strip of that pattern paper left over, why don't I fold it up and make myself a little pocket for like a gift card? Or if you like to send cards that can be reusable, you could just tuck a note in there and then the person can reuse your card for somebody else. So that's nice. Keeps it from getting thrown away, and then somebody else gets to get joy from your card as well. So to make our pocket, what I'm going to do first, before I glue it down, is I am just going to put some adhesive along the side there. And the bottom's sealed up because it's just a fold. And then we're going to put adhesive on the back. And then the nice thing about double-sided paper, I love to do this with double-sided paper because I always have a hard time, like, what side do I choose? They're both so pretty. You know, do you get the double-sided paper anxiety where you're like, oh, they're both so pretty, what do I do? So doing a fancy fold or a simple fold is a great way to make use of both sides of that. And look at that, you've got a nice spot to either stick a note or a gift card. It's not going to fall out or get lost, so the card can either be reused or used as a gift card holder. It has a nice weight to it because I'm using a nice high-quality craft cardstock because I finally was able to find heavy-duty craft cardstock. I was excited about that. And then it coordinates perfectly with our envelope, and the envelope is plain enough that you can write on it. So this paper, let me double check what company this paper's from because you might want to find it. I'm pretty sure it's Die Cuts with a View, but I'll double check. I'm sorry, this is the Love Nicole Tonal Pattern Set, and that's at AC Moore. But it's great because you can use it as a solid or you can use it as a tone because it's double-sided. And tone-on-tone paper is just easier to work with. Now you can make your own tone-on-tone paper by using any of your rubber stamps and stamping in the same color ink. So if you took like a mint blue or a mint green cardstock and you stamped in that same shade of ink, you could get a very similar effect, and it would be cheaper because cardstock is generally cheaper than pattern paper. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video today. Please give me a thumbs thumbs up if you enjoy these fun and easy card making tutorials. Please check out our sponsor, Rubber Stamp Tapestry. You can find them online at pegstamps.com. Thanks for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.